Hey, book pals, it's Kirsten from the Spine of Motherhood, and you are listening to one of my monthly reading wrap up episodes. For this chat, it's going to be just me yapping about the books I read, so settle in, grab your drink, and let's go. Before we get into the show proper, I wanted to let you guys know that I am currently reading Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. Let me know what you're currently reading in the comments as well. Hey, book pals, it is time to talk about the books I read in March. And what better time to talk about them than when April is almost over? It has been a very busy month as things kind of wind down for the school year. I am a substitute teacher, so the last month has been, wrapping up testing and getting ready for summertime. I hope that I can be more on time for April's reads, but, we're just going to roll with it. So I've got my iced coffee, cold brew with cinnamon roll creamer, as I usually do. I have 2 cats on my lap, and I'm comfy. So I hope that you take a second to get comfortable and just pretend that we're at a coffee shop together and we're going to have coffee and chat about books. Except it's going to be me yapping to you. I do wish that I could hear all of the books you read in March because I would love to hear them. So feel free to leave a comment below and let me know some of the books you read or what your favorite book was in March. But without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I read in March is The Old Man and His Sea. Oh, The Old Man and His River. I'm already messing stuff up. The Old Man and His River by Matt Wildasin. Matt is amazing. One of my favorite people. He's a very talented writer and cover artist. He just does everything. So this story is about an old man who is a fisherman, and he loves this river. He has a very tight and deep connection to it. He decides he wants to take one last trip out on the river before he dies, and he has a grandson who he bonds with over this river and fishing, but he decides he's going to do this last hurrah alone. He wants to catch a legendary catfish that everyone talks about. There's this huge rumor of this catfish that lives in this hole known as the Deep Crater, and the catfish is called Big Blue. So the old man hopes he can catch it and bring it home, and it would really just be kind of a good thing to share with his grandson, but also kind of to signify the man's life so far. But he is old, he is tired, and he is having some doubt and uncertainty about if he can complete this task. So will he bring home his dream, or will he return with just another story to tell? And, is it important either way that he has the story or the fish? It's up for you to decide. But I really, really loved this one. I thought it was very hopeful and inspiring. I loved the grandson and grandfather dynamic, and you can tell that this was a passion project for Matt. And he put a lot of his own soul into this story. It's a quick read. It is it's just a feel-good story for me. So I think that if you're looking for something to kind of bolster that hopeful feeling, especially when things are so stressful and chaotic in our world, The Old Man and His River is a great choice. The next book that I read in March is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fado. And oh man, this book I read in like one day. I started it, and within the first few chapters I was hooked. The writing style is, so imagine like Victorian ages descriptions, but this main character, Winifred Naughty, is on her own journey. She is doing her own thing. So Winifred goes to this house, Ensor House, and is going to be a governess. She has 2 children. She watches over Drusilla and Andrew, and you figure out pretty early on this lady does not need to be around children. There's some stuff going on. I don't want to ruin anything, but it is deliciously disturbing. Things start to unravel. There's like this aspect of Winifred has her past family issues. She doesn't know her dad, or she's trying to connect to her dad, and you can tell she's messed up. She's messed up. There's no other way to say it. Christmas is coming up. Winifred has a special gift planned for people that live at Ensor House. It's funny. I laughed. It is shocking at times. And if you want to be in the mind of a psychopathic person that is a governess in this rich people's manor, this is a good one for you. It's been kind of hit or miss. I've seen on reviews for people. It didn't blow me away, but I honestly enjoyed reading it, and I don't regret reading it by any means. So if you're looking for something like that's going to shock you and kind of make you laugh and is off the beaten path from typical psychopathic people tropes, Victorian Psycho is a great choice. So the next book I read in March is Gothic by Fracassi. Okay, let me start this by saying what this is about. So this is about an author, a horror writer, Tyson Parks, and he gets this antique desk from his partner. She's hoping that it will help rekindle his writing. And this desk is this basically cursed artifact that has been in another woman's family for forever. And when Tyson starts using this desk, some strange things start happening, and his writing is like getting more disturbing. He's like losing time. He doesn't know what's going on. People are noticing his demeanor change. He's losing his sanity as time goes on. And it has a very great premise. This cursed desk, this writer that's a horror writer that's writing with this desk, and how that's affecting his writing and his mental health, his sanity. I will say the writing, there's nothing wrong with the writing. You can tell that Fracassi is a talented writer and knows how to tell a story. It's definitely a slow burn for me, and I am not a fan of slow burns. It's very slow moving, and I found it pretty boring and uneventful for the duration of the entire story. I didn't find myself caring about the main character. I didn't really care about anything that was happening, and I don't know why that is, but Gothic for me was probably my least favorite book of March. And it's not one I would recommend with any excitement to anyone. So I hate being negative, but for me, that was not a great read. So I'm going to say that, and if you loved Gothic, I totally get it. It is pretty well loved. It just wasn't for me. So let's take that and move on to the next book that I read in March. So the next book I read in March is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Of course, I've seen this book. Of course, I know who John Green is. One of my best friends, Lindsay, told me this is one of their favorite books, and the English class that I substituted for was reading it. So I thought, you know what? Let me just read it too while they're reading it. Not only can then I help them with their assignments, but I've never read it. So I read it pretty quickly. It's a fast read. It's an easy read. And it follows Asa, who is a high schooler that is struggling with mental illness, but also, the normal things high schoolers struggle with. Friends, love life, family, the future, all of that. And she has OCD and anxiety. And the way that is portrayed in this book is so well done and so spot on as a reader who also has OCD and anxiety. But there is like this issue that crops up. So someone in her town, a very rich, well-known man, goes missing. And his son, or one of his sons, is Aza's best friend. And so she kind of feels compelled to focus on his disappearance and try to help figure out what happened to her friend's dad. But then there's all the other like typical teenager things going on, and her struggling with her mental illness at the same time. So this was a very enjoyable read. I feel like it does a really great job, which portraying mental illness in stories is sometimes so badly done that it's just infuriating. This is not the case with this one. I feel like it's a really great way to describe someone struggling with those kind of intrusive thoughts or impulsivity or obsessive thoughts. Yeah. So I love Turtles All the Way Down. I'm glad I read it. And if you haven't read it, I recommend it. The next book I finished in March is Cadaverous by my friend Jay Bauer. So this has been on my to be read for so long. I love Jay. I've met him several times, had long chats with him. He is just the kindest person. He's super talented. He's hardworking when it comes to his writing, and I'm sure in his personal life as well. But yeah, no, Cadaverous is very, very well loved within the indie horror community. So this is about Gage Penrod, and he is a guitarist in a metal band, and he really wants to achieve what a lot of musicians do, which is like being famous and greatness. But he goes to a concert during an eclipse, which is a really unique way of having this main issue happen. I'm trying not to like spoil too much with this, but yeah, there's some kind of evil at this concert during this eclipse, and it gets attached to Gage. So he is now possessed with this power that he can achieve immortality in the terms of his music and fame and glory. And there is a bargain with a demon, which I love a good bargain with a demon or demon in general story. So this kind of like focuses on how dangerous it can be to have this ambition in life where you want everything and you don't care at what cost you get that. And, you know, it has this like musical side. I love horror that incorporates heavy musical influences, and this one definitely does. It was a really fun read. I enjoyed it so much. And I think that if you're into demons and metal music and you like quick, fast-paced stories, Cadaverous is a great one to read. The next book I read in March is Church of Skatan by the most lovely, wonderful, and past podcast guest, Damien Casey. I'm heavily biased, so this is, I know you guys are going to be like, this is her friend, but he is my friend, and I love all of his books, and that's one of the reasons, like, we became friends in the first place, is because I love his writing. So Church of Skatan is set in the early 2000s, which, so nostalgic, because that's when I was like a preteen and a teenager. There are these kids that live in the suburbs, Ethan, Dylan, and Billy, and they all love skateboarding. They have like a reuniting moment in their hometown when it's college break for the summer, and they're getting back together to hang out. They're bored in this town, and they realize that there's a building that has this pool. It's abandoned, and they're like, you know, if we drain this pool, we can skate in it. That's perfect. But something lives in this drain, and when they go to drain it, they are summoning this group called the Daughters of Eve, and they are a murderous cult that wants to unleash this evil that lives in this pool in this building and just mess everything up, just go crazy on the world. So these kids have to kind of fight against this cult and against, you know, to me, kind of like society in general, encapsulating youth and freedom and summertime with these early 2000 vibes and this very deep, obvious love of skateboarding that Damien has. It was super fun. I kind of actually love the Daughters of Eve, the violent, angry cult of women. They're badass. Obviously, they're the bad guys in some sense here, but there's this other nuanced side to them that you're like, I get it. Go off, sis, you know? So if you like those vibes, the early 2000s skateboarding vibes with like kind of an eldritch terror, evil lurking, check out Skirt. You guys, It's 10:30 in the morning, so I shouldn't be this like discombobulated, but here we are. Check out Church of Skatan by Damien Casey. I loved it. Again, obviously I'm heavily biased, but I really, really, really enjoyed this one. The next book I read in March was The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica, author of Tender is the Flesh, which has been mentioned on this podcast many times because it is fantastic. Yeah, love it. So this, I wasn't even gonna like really prioritize. I'd been seeing it on Bookstagram a lot. And obviously I wanted to read it because I loved Tender is the Flesh, but I found it on Everend, which, let me give a little aside here about this. So Everend is an audiobook. They also have ebooks as well, but mostly for me an audiobook app platform that you pay like Audible. The difference is that with Everend you pay, I think it's like $14 a month, and you get to unlock 3 titles instead of with Audible you pay whatever it is, 14, 15, and you get 1 credit per month. You get to unlock 3 titles this way. So once you unlock it too, which I'm thinking it's the same with Audible, but once you unlock it, you keep it unlocked. It's not like it goes away. So if you're looking for something else, it's a paid audiobook subscription that has a pretty good selection of like indie horror as well, because that's what I try to prioritize reading. Everend's a good one. But anyways, back to the main point of The Unworthy. I saw The Unworthy on there, and I was like, you know what? Why not? And I used one of my Everend credits to unlock it. I finished this one in about a day. The narrator was fantastic. This is a translated work, which I feel like I can always do better about making sure I read more translated works. But this is about women that live in a secretive, violent, religious sect, while the outside world is falling apart in this dystopian nightmare. So the woman that's narrating the story is writing her story of her life down, and keeping it hidden. She is somebody who is a part of this sacred sisterhood, but she is considered to be like an unworthy. But she has this desire to kind of move up to be one of the enlightened and like make the superior sister, who's like the head person, you know, happy. This sect has their own like social hierarchy in the way that they're structured and how they interact with each other. And there's a lot of like stress and drama and violence within it. And they also have to kind of deal with the things that are happening outside of this convent, which is like, you know, cities are underwater, there's no internet or electricity, there's no food. Yeah, pretty terrible. But a stranger gets into the convent and joins these unworthy, and the narrator that we're following has to kind of like start digging deeper into herself and her past to cope with what's happening within the sisterhood. And she can't remember a lot of her life, how she got there, what happened before that. So that's kind of unraveling as what's happening in the convent is happening. This character, this narrator, is also unraveling her kind of dark past. So it's a lot, but it's kind of crammed into a very short book. I can't remember how many pages it is, but it was a very fast read. And it says on the Goodreads synopsis that it is a searing dystopian tale about climate change, ideological extremism, and the pull of our most violent exploitive instincts. So it is this one story on the surface, but it has all these things underneath that are just simmering there, and I loved it. It's weird, and I think that's a lot of people's criticism with it, was that it was weird and they didn't get it. I think that's Bazterrica's kind of vibe. I really enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read for me, and I didn't love it as much as Tender as the Flesh by any means, but I think that if you liked Tender as the Flesh, you should read The Unworthy. And if you like kind of like religious sex, I'm doing terrible at talking. Like a convent of women that follow this extreme religion and also dystopian environmental issues, The Unworthy is a great one. The next one I read in March is All the Hearts You Eat by Hailey Piper. So, funnily enough, I started this book a very long time ago. I just get distracted really easily, like I just did trying to think about how to explain this. I love Hailey Piper. If you've listened to even like one of my podcast chats, you will know I'm a huge Hailey Piper fan. So when All the Hearts You Eat came out, I was like, I have to read this. I kind of got like a vampire ghosty vibes, and I was like, hell yeah. So the synopsis for All the Hearts You Eat is Gothic horror in a small town. There's kind of like these legends in this town. It's like a on the ocean kind of town, like a Cape Cod vibe to me. And there's like some weird folklore stuff happening. A young girl, Cabrina Bright, ends up dead. And Ivory, who's our main character, is very impacted by finding her body washed up on Cape Morning, which is this town. And there's a poem, too, that's kind of like a death poem Cabrina wrote. But there's this mystery surrounding how did Cabrina die? And what are the circumstances with which she died? Why is everything so mysterious and nobody's talking about it? So Ivory really wants to figure out what happened to Cabrina. And some ghosty stuff some haunting starts happening. But it's not what it seems to be. There's something much more sinister lurking below the surface of that. And the many characters in this book, like there's a couple who are Cabrina Bright's close friends, best friends. And they're also trying to figure this out and work through Cabrina's death. And then we have Ivory, who is really not related to or connected to Cabrina Bright in any way, but is the one that finds her body in her poem. And they're all kind of becoming interconnected in this mystery that is Cabrina Bright's death. Cape Morning isn't a ghost town, but a town filled with ghosts. That's what the synopsis says. And Ivory's about to discover just what happens when you let one in. Yeah. I enjoyed this one. This was also a 4-star. It's not my favorite Hailey Piper, but it's so well written. I love her prose and the way she writes and the characters she creates. So visceral and lifelike and fully fleshed, but full of like hurt and pain and longing and I don't know, just so vibrant. I loved it. I love Hailey Piper's writing. So if you're looking for something kind of weird that has a multitude of different horror elements, with some kind of punch to the gut emotional things, All the Hearts You Eat is the one to read. All right, the next book I finished in March is another one I started a long time ago, and I read like one chapter a month for some weird reason until I finished it when I was on the plane home from AuthorCon. So this is The Tickle Monster by David Washburn, who, again, some will say I'm biased, and I say, nah. I definitely am biased. I think David is also a fantastic talent, writes some super great stories, has a knack for holding on to this idea and just going full force at it. And so The Tickle Monster is really cool and unique premise. We all kind of have these stories of things when we're kids that our parents told us at bedtime or routines we had at bedtime that really stuck with us, right? So The Tickle Monster kind of comes from that same place where, I think David's had this Tickle monster kind of game with his child, and it like a lot of his stories, it really inspired him to create this story. Like, it latched on, kind of. And I love when that happens as an author, as a writer, or creative person, when just like something kind of innocuous wiggles its way into your mind and you're like, I have to write a story about that. So the Tickle monster is written in also a unique time setting. It's like colonial, which I think is really cool. And I can't, other than like watching The Witch, I can't think of any books I've read that has like colonial era horror. So this says, what happens when a looming sense of dread has a death grip on a child's mind? Teddy is the main character, but there's this kind of rebellious side to him that wants him to make his own place in the world. And he has a lot to learn yet, and his father is trying to help him become a man and to help take care of his family for in the future. But his dad's like, yo, don't go in the woods. That's like the one big thing, don't go in the woods. And of course, as kids do, he does go in the woods. After that, he is faced with a choice he sees him in the very place where he shouldn't be. He encounters something he can't understand that will haunt him in the coming days. This tale of colonial era horror proves a child's imagination isn't always a safe place. So that, I feel like I gave that's partially the synopsis on Goodreads, but I feel like I'm not doing a great job at describing what happened. But just imagine colonial era family, and this fun game of the Tickle monster that his dad plays with him. And don't go in the woods. And of course, Teddy goes in the woods, and there's some evil lurking there. What happens next? You will have to read the story to find out, because it's so good. And at the ending, I was like, what? It's a novella, so it's a fast read. It's really fun. I loved this one. Again, not biased at all. But yeah, that's The Tickle Monster by David Washburn. The next book I read in March is going to be... Well, okay, so... This one, I don't know if I should, put it as a holdover for April, because I finished it right at the beginning of April, but I was reading it actively in March. And that is The Home by Judith Sonnet. So I will briefly mention this, and I'll recap it again in April, most likely. But The Home is, oh my goodness. The Home is one of those books I read, and I was like, this is going to be an instant classic. Like, the way it's written, the magnitude of this epic story... yeah, just so fantastic. There's so many layers to it. So let me get into the details. The way the synopsis is written is kind of like in little flash bites of the timeline of this house. So it starts back in the 60s with kids going in this house, because it's like, oh, it's haunted and bad stuff happened. And then fast forward to the future. Basically, more and more terrible things are happening surrounding the home. That's what it's called, The Home. But the final synopsis, little flashbang on here is, a dark storm is brewing over this wicked house. A storm that will break down the very fabric of reality. A storm that demands blood and sacrifice and feeds on the ghosts of anyone who dies within its premises. This has got some good gore, some definitely creepy parts with this entity that lives in the home. And it also has this kind of undercurrent of found family identity, growing up, generational trauma and history of this town and these people within it. It's just brilliantly written. It's a fantastic book. I'm going to talk about it more, I'm fairly sure, in my April wrap-up, because I feel like it deserves a little bit longer of a description and getting into all the details. But it is so complex because there's different time periods that things are happening, and they all interconnect at the end. But Judith Sonnet did fantastic with this. So that's the home. That's all I'll say about it now. We'll chat about it next month, which is in, the end of the month is soon. So hopefully I'll have that out shortly. But anyways, that is everything I read in March. And I feel like March was a great reading month. I've been consistently reading 9 or 10 books a month, and I'm happy with that. I don't even think I could pick a favorite book for March, because I loved everything so much except for Gothic. That was like the only one I really didn't love at all. I didn't even really like. So I highly recommend all of them. I will make sure that I have the details in the show notes, and tag everybody and all that stuff. But I would love, if you are listening to this, if you can leave me a comment, or even message me and let me know what your favorite read was in March, or something that really stood out to you that you read in March. I love hearing that. But anyways, that is all for me. Thanks for listening. I look forward to talking to you next month. And as always, happy reading.